Well, we are in a series that we've been calling Seven because we're looking at the 7 miracles that Jesus performed and were told about in the book of John. We're going to look at his second miracle today, and just to learn from these miracles over and over again. We're seeing them and learning that there's power in what Jesus does, but there's power also in what he can do in our lives. And so we're seeing how can we look at these miracles that Jesus performed and the signs that he gave to prove that he was God then, and see how he's God in our lives now. So we're just going to continue to walk through this, and we're kind of in this study as well in our small groups. If you're in a small group, you've been watching videos and kind of doing a study together that kind of goes alongside of the weekend. And so we'll study on the weekend, and we'll put it all together during our small groups. And hopefully the kind of merger of those two worlds together will allow us to even get more out of this. So let's just jump into Jesus' second miracle in the book of John. It's in chapter 4. Looking at verse 43 through 45 just for a second. It says, after 2 days, he left there for Galilee. And Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. And when they entered Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him because they had seen everything he did in Jerusalem during the festival, for they had gone to the festival. So Jesus has been at this festival, this religious gathering that he's been at, and they've seen all these things that he's been doing. He's been in Galilee. And after his 2 days ministry in Samaria, Jesus and his disciples continue north into Galilee. Rather, they're headed to Galilee, and as they travel through and go into different places. And then in verse 46, it says, then he went again to Cana of Galilee, and there was a certain royal official whose son was ill at Capernaum. And this certain royal official, he's not identified, he doesn't tell us who he is, but because of the way that John refers to him, it's likely that he was a Jewish official, probably wealthy and with some degree of authority among the people. And so he's a religious leader, some type of leader in the Jewish church, and he's got this authority, he's known, and he comes to Jesus because his son was sick. And if we know any dad would exhaust everything they had, but especially someone who has a lot of authority, who has a lot of resources, we would know that he's exhausted every resource. He's tried everything he can possibly try for his son. He's used all of his money, all of his authority, and now he's getting to a point where he's desperate. And so he's traveled 25 miles, this royal official. And it was rough travel at that time, not 25 miles like we would travel today, but a rough travel of 25 miles. And he's come from Capernaum to see this guy that he heard about who could do healings. He heard that he's turned water into wine at a wedding. He's heard that he's Jesus is the Messiah. He's heard that he's God, that he's the one who's coming. He's heard just enough about him that he runs to him. And here's what we see, first of all. When we need a miracle, we're willing to work. When we want magic, we're just looking for a show, right? So this guy's willing to work. He goes 25 miles. He travels in what would be a hard terrain. Just for the hope, just the glimpse of hope that there's this man whom I can heal my son. He wasn't just going to see a show. He was going to see what this man Jesus could do. This man knows he needs a miracle, so he's willing to go after it. He's willing to go after a miracle. We keep seeing this over and over again in these miracle stories. Even some that we looked at in the last series in Mark chapter 5, that when we have something that we really need, when we have this desperate desire in our lives, that we're willing to go after it with God. We're willing to do whatever it takes to get into the presence of God. See, we see here, when there is a crisis, you need to go to Jesus. Oftentimes, what we're guilty of was when there's a crisis in our life, we run away from God. Well, when there's a crisis in our life, we try to fix it on our own. When there's a crisis in our life, we're ashamed because oftentimes we get ourselves into the crisis ourselves. And so we don't want to run to God. We don't want to run to the people of God and get wisdom from them. But we go away from God. We push away from God. We push away from wisdom around us. We're ashamed. And so shame pushes us away. But crisis should push us towards God. In fact, don't make Jesus your last resort, but instead make him your first support. Like he shouldn't be the very last thing you come to. Well, I've tried everything else. I mean, I've tried to fix this on my own. I've tried everything I could possibly do. I've tried all kinds of different ways. I guess now I'll just go to Jesus in prayer. I guess now I'll get back involved in the church. There's so many of you who have that story. And if you could share your story with someone else, you would say, look, don't wait. Don't wait. I wish I would have come back to Jesus earlier, you would say. I wish I hadn't waited till I was at the end of my rope. I wish I wouldn't have waited until I was at the very lowest place that I could find myself. I wish I wouldn't have waited. Many of you would say. I wish that I would have made him the first support instead of my last resort. This man goes to Jesus. He runs to him in this time of crisis. Then continuing on in verse 47. When this man heard that Jesus had come from Judea into Galilee, he went to him and pleaded with him to come down and to heal his son, for he was about to die. This man is desperate, and he's broken. Desperation often is the precursor to a miracle. Have you noticed that? There's this moment of desperation. I need a miracle, God. I need something different in my life. I need you to show up, Jesus. I need a miracle, and he's desperate. His son is on his deathbed. Maybe it's not been a child that's been sick. Maybe it's been something else for you. But have you ever been there? Where you're just desperate. You're desperate. You're broken. I mean, you would just be honest enough to admit that you're broken and to run to Jesus in this moment of crisis and to say, I need a miracle. I need something different. I need you to show up in my life. This man is there. Runs to Jesus. And Jesus says, unless you people see signs and wonders, you will not believe. Jesus kind of turns his back on the man. The man runs up to him. He's desperate. He's asking God, can you just do something? Can you show up? My son is sick. He's going to die. And Jesus kind of turns his back. And he turns to the crowd. He goes, unless you people see signs and wonders, you'll never believe. It was likely that the crowd knew who this official was. It was likely that they knew that he had authority, that he had power, and they're thinking, oh, great, Jesus is going to do something. There's going to be a show now. Jesus is going to do something great now because this guy has shown up. But Jesus turns and he gives this sort of a sharp statement to the crowd. He doesn't even address the man, this man who's broken before him. He doesn't really address him. He just turns to the crowd. And they were likely even surprised a little bit that this Jewish official would ask Jesus for anything. I mean, this man of authority, this man of great wealth, this man who was known among the people, but now he's desperate and asking Jesus for help. And they wanted to see how Jesus would respond. I mean, they've heard a little bit about Jesus too. And they hoped for a little more abracadabra. They hoped for a little more waving of the hands and something would happen. They'd heard about the wine. I mean, Jesus had turned water into wine. They'd heard about that. They wanted to see something. And so Jesus addressed those sharp what was necessary, because here's what Jesus knows. A faith built on miracles is not a faith that can stand the mundane. And how many of you know, you've been around long enough to go, life is just mundane sometimes. Sometimes you gotta just walk through life and you do the same things over and over again. God called you to something. He called you to be faithful in it, and you just walk through it over and over again. You just kind of go through life, kind of waiting to see what God's going to do with your life. But there's mundane times, and so if a faith is built on miracles, we won't be able to stand the mundane, and Jesus knew that. And he's turning to this crowd going, you're looking for a miracle. That's what will cause you to believe. But I want you to believe whether you see a miracle or not. I want you to believe when you're just taking just long steps in the same direction, just long obedience in the same direction, just being a great husband, just being a great wife, just being a great son or daughter, just long steps in the same direction, just being obedient. See, sometimes the Christian faith is, I'll talk to people and they go, I'm trying to find God's will. All of us want to know God's will, right? We want to know, what does God want for my life? What does He call me to? And we ask, does He want me to go to this school, or does He want me to take this job, or does He want me to move into this house? And this is my phrase that I'll tell to people all the time. I was like, I don't think God is that concerned about what direction you take in those situations. Here's what I think God has called me to be, I think God has called me to be the greatest Sean that I can possibly be. He made me, uniquely designed me with purpose to be who I am. And so in that, He wants me to be the greatest husband that I can be to Connie. He's called me to get better at being a husband, to take my weaknesses that are often so glaring, but to be a better husband, and just to take long steps, just long obedience in the same direction, just being the best husband I can be. He wants me to be the best dad I can be to the kids that we have. Just long steps in the same direction, just be obedient in the mundane. See, but Jesus knew they were looking for a miracle, and their faith was going to be built on miracles, and He needed to point it out to them. You need to believe. You need to have faith in what you can't see. See, He knew that a generation was going to come that wasn't going to get to see Him perform these miracles. And they needed to stand on the promises that God had for them. And so He's building this up. And Jesus was saying, you say you believe in me. You say you follow me, but really, you just want to see another miracle. But as for the man, the Jewish official, he was there for a miracle. So he pushes in. And he says, wait a minute. The man says to Jesus in verse 49, Sir, the official said to him, Sir, hey, time out. Hey, you're talking to them. I just came up to you. Let me talk to you. He says, come down before my boy dies. This guy breaks into the conversation. And this man is like, look, I don't really care what they're here for. I don't really care what they believe in or don't believe in and what they want to see, Jesus, but I need you to come here before my son dies. I'm here because I have nowhere else to go, nowhere else to turn, and I'm trying to believe that you're who you say you are. So come down before my boy dies, the man says. And see, Jesus saw that. There was something He appreciated about that. There was something He saw in this man that was called faith. And that even in his doubts, even in his doubting of, are you who you say you are? I mean, I've got the whole religious law, this man would have said. I've got everything that the priest in that time and the church would have said, Jesus is not who He says He is. The church would later even kill Jesus. They would crucify Him. And I've got all of this. This is what I've built my life upon. But I've heard that you can save my boy. And see, here's what I've found about true faith. When it really gets down to something that matters to you, it's when you'll see what your faith is like. See, this guy had religiosity. I mean, he had built his life upon religion. He worked for the church. He was doing everything the church had told him to do. But all of a sudden, he realized religion wasn't going to save his boy. Religion wasn't going to do anything about the sick son that laid in a bed. He knew, I need something more. And see, there's many of you who you walk through life, doing religion. You showed up to church because that's what you do in the South. You watch college football and you show up to church. That's what we do. So we do. So you've always gone to church. And you kind of did what you were supposed to do. And maybe there's been seasons in your life where you became a creaster. You guys know what a creaster is? You come at Christmas and Easter. Christmas and Easter, you're a creaster. And you became a creaster and you come at Christmas and Easter, but you at least did that. And you just kind of walking through, you just did religion. It was just religion over and over again. But you said, I got it. I checked my box off. I went to church today, but it didn't involve your life really. But then something happened. A significant emotional experience came into your life. There was something that you really needed. And religion wasn't going to cut it anymore. And you needed real faith. You needed a real Jesus. And it was time to see what that was going to look like. He says, come down before my boy dies. See, I think there's a lot of you who are here. You'd say, Lord Jesus, come before my marriage dies. Lord Jesus, come before my health fails. Lord Jesus, come before my dream dies. Lord Jesus, come before this friendship dies, before my finances die. Come. I need something real. I need a faith that is not built just on a show, not on abracadabra, but it's built on a man named Jesus. He says, this is what I need. In verse 50, this is interesting. Jesus says, go. Jesus told him, your son will live. Now, when I read this, the first thing I see is that this boy, he's going to be healed, right? Because we know the end of the story. Go, Jesus told him, your son will live. But we got to look a little bit deeper into this to realize where this man was. He's traveled 25 miles, and he says to Jesus, I need you to come with me. I need you to come. You're going to come with me, and you can save my son. I need you to come to my house. My son is sick. And Jesus says, man, all you need is to see something, and it's just, that is what will make you believe. So he has this harsh comment, and he says, look, I need you to come before my boy dies. Would you come? And then Jesus goes, look, just go home. Go home. Your son will be fine. Your son will be fine. Now, I'm going to tell you, if I'm a dad in that situation, it's a lot more faith than what we know having read the end of the story that it took for this man. Because what Jesus is really saying is no. Because he said, come with me, Jesus. Come to my house. Come with me, Jesus. Come and heal my son. And Jesus says, no, I'm not coming to your house. You just go on, your son will be fine. I mean, I would have taken that in several different ways. Your son will live. I mean, but can I trust you? Why don't you just come on with me, Jesus, and you just make sure? Because maybe you need to touch him. Maybe you need to be there. Because I don't know how this all works. You probably know better than me, Jesus. But I feel like if you were to come with me, that would make it better. Why don't you just come? No, Jesus says. You go ahead. Your son will live. Jesus says, no, I'm not coming with you. See, when Jesus says no, it's because he has something better in mind. How many of you ever prayed prayers and you've gotten no as the answer? You've prayed and you said, Jesus, would you do this for me? God, would you show up in this way? And all you hear back is a resounding no. God, I need to have this job. If I get this job, I know this will be perfect, God. This will be great, God. I'm inviting you into my plans. God, come on, let me have this job. No. God, would you let this healing happen? I think if this healing were to happen, it would be great. We could show the world. It would be your fame, God. Would you do this? Just heal this person, God. No. God, would you do this in my finances? I know if you did this in my finances, that it would just prove to the world, God, that you're so great. No. Sometimes no is Jesus' answer. This man came to Jesus and said, I want you to come to Capernaum and heal my son. I want you to come with me. In fact, as I read it, I'm reminded of our story of Mark 5. Remember in Mark 5 when Jesus and Jairus run into each other? And Jairus comes and he says, hey, I want you to come and heal my son. It's the 16th miracle recorded of Jesus in the Bible, by the way. But so it's several miracles down the line. And Jairus comes and says, come with me. Come to my house and heal my child. Just come in my house with me. And what does Jesus do? He goes with him. He goes to his house with him. He walks to his house with him. He sees the people there mourning. He says, what are you guys mourning about? He sends them out and he heals his child. He goes with him. And I'm sitting here reading this and I'm remembering that. And why didn't he go with this man? Why did he make him walk? Listen, 25 miles back to his house, this man had to walk. I wonder if my boy is really going to live. I wonder if it's really going to... That's long obedience in the same direction right there. Just mundane. I wonder if he's really going to live. I mean, Jesus said he was going to live. I wonder when I get there if he's going to be okay. Imagine this journey back to his house. Some of you have been there. You feel like God has given you an answer to your prayer. That your marriage is going to get better. That your finances are going to come into the right place. That you feel like God has given you a vision for your life. That you're going to change the world in some way. But the truth of the matter is right now, you're on the 25-mile journey. You're on the journey back going, Jesus said it was going to happen this way. He said this was going to come, he was going to come through me. He said my boy would live again, and he's walking back. And I think about, why couldn't he do it like he did for Jairus? I wonder why he couldn't have gone back with him. And then I'm reminded, your miracle does not have to look like my miracle. See, sometimes we see what happens in someone else's life, and we go, I want that, I want that. Jesus, would you touch me that way? Jesus, would you heal my son that way? God, would you show up to my house like you did his? Would you come into my life the way you did his? And so we think we got to have the same miracle, and Jesus says, no, I got a plan for your life. I've got a miracle for your life. It's not going to be the same way that it was for him. It's not going to be the same way over and over again. I'm not going to make water into wine again. I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to always do the same thing because I'm not an abracadabra God. I'm a relational God, and I know what you need. And he saw into this man and thought, you know what he needs? He needs a 25-mile journey back to his house where his faith will be strengthened, because Jesus had a plan that we're going to see in just a moment for his life. And he needed that journey back in order to be prepared for what would await him. Here's what Jesus knew. It wasn't his child being healed that was the most important thing that was going on that day. The most important thing going on that day was the development of this man's soul and his heart. And sometimes you're going through something that is there just to prepare you for the thing that God has next for you. It's not about the miracle. It's about the mundane. It's about walking through the mundane. But then I had to look at it a little closer too, and I thought, did the man really want Jesus in Capernaum? I mean, honestly, did he really care, or did he really want his son healed? He wanted his son healed. I mean, he thought that the best way for his son to be healed was for Jesus to come to Capernaum with him. Hey, you come with me, Jesus. You come with me. He had a plan for the way that Jesus was supposed to work in his life just now. But the truth of the matter is, really and truly, he just wanted his son healed. And see, sometimes some of us have gotten too caught up in the how of our miracle. And you're missing that God has a better way, and you just got to stick with the why. See, we have a plan for the way we want God to work in our lives. It's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be God has a plan for us, but we have a plan. God, I'd like you to do this. Here's why, but here's how I would like you to do it. And if you'll do it this way, it'd be much better, God, if you just do it this way. And I just want you to give me a great marriage, God, and here's how I want you to do it. I want you to give me great finances, God, and here's how I want you to do it. God, I want you to give me great children, God, and here's how I want you to do it. God, I have a how, and I want you to do it this way, God. And so, but God has a better way. He has a better way. And sometimes to get to that way, he has to say, no, you got to take the 25-mile journey so you can come around to my way. Maybe this man just needed this 25-mile journey so that he could come around to God's way. Maybe you're going through what you're going through right now just so you can come around to God's way. Maybe God said, you know what, why don't you go for a walk? You just need to go for a walk for a little while and just get your head together, and then you'll see that I've got the best way. See, we got the same why. We both want the same why, but we don't have the same way yet until you come to my way. And some of you think you got a better way than God. Some of you think you got a much better way than God. Here's what I'd say to that. When you get yourself a universe, then you can have a better way than God. All right? But you don't have a universe right now, so you don't have a better way than God. God has the better way. And so he's saying, hey, well, why don't you just take a time out here and you get yourself together and we'll figure that out. See, here's what I think about this. I've always wanted a great marriage. I've told Connie that I remember back when I was a young teenager thinking about being a husband, wanting a great marriage, and just wanting to see that in my life, and wanting to just have a marriage, and just kind of daydreaming about marriage. And can I tell you, I believe that Connie and I have a good marriage. We really do. We've come a long way. We're growing every single day. How you doing? And so we're doing good, But if you were to talk to both of us, we'd tell you, it's not how we thought we'd get there. Let me tell you, there's been some things that we've had to go through to get there that we didn't know we were going to go through. There's been some times of stretching and growing and some growing pains that we would not have mapped it out on the how, but God had the same why, and he had a better way. He stretched us. He's made us into who he needed us to be. And he knew that there was often times when, for me to continue to grow to be the husband I needed to be, I was just going to need to have a 25-mile walk where I just was thinking, all right, I wonder if this is going to be, I think it's going to turn out all right. I think it's going to happen. I don't know, though. I got to see if it's going to happen or not. And he just knew I needed some time away. I needed, how many other husbands just need a time out every now and then? Need a time out. And so sometimes I needed that. He took us on a different route than we would have ever imagined. I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to have a big family, lots of kids. And we have 3 biological children now that we love and they've been awesome in our lives, but we've also had the opportunity to be able to parent 5 other children. And the future probably holds even more. We didn't know how God was going to do that. We didn't know that we would be on this crazy journey. And we didn't have any idea about the how. We knew the why. We think we could parent people. We think we could grow these little, people up to be something. But we didn't know how that was going to happen. But God has been able to get a better how. He said, this is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to have a big family. This is how you're going to be able to grow some people that way. And it's funny how we always have this how. It's also funny how people want their miracle to be your miracle. Have you ever noticed that? They want it to happen the same way for you that it happened for them. It's part of the reason is because we think we know everything. We think we have it all figured out. Thinking about parenting, Connie was recently with our youngest. Right now, he's kind of on bottles and everything, and so we're doing that again. And so he's on bottles and everything. She was in a place where there were some other moms, and there was these other moms there, and she was kind of doing the burping thing. I told Connie, I said, it's amazing, like, that doesn't bother them, but it seems to really, really make them feel easy. They just kind of, they don't have no neck control. They just kind of, and then like, burp, big old man burps going. But we're doing this, and she said, she's in this place, and there's these millennial moms that were in there. And you millennials, I love you to death. Y'all are great people, but y'all think y'all have learned everything already in your 20s, and you're just aggravating sometimes. I'm just going to be honest with you. And so she's doing this, and the millennial mom looked at her and said, you don't have to burp babies anymore. Did they change the biology of a baby all of a sudden? I didn't even know. The millennials figured it out so good that they don't even have to burp their babies anymore. They just kind of look at them and they go burp. They don't even have to do anything. You know why? Because we think we know everything. We think we know everything. We think we got it all figured out. Don't even have to burp babies anymore. Connie was very nice. She didn't say anything. I told her she should have said, the 7 other children I've had, that has happened, but you probably are right with your one baby. One child. I'm so busy, I don't even know what to do. One child. I can't even seem to get to church on time with one child. Good heavens, millennial moms. If you're a millennial, we love you. You're awesome. I don't even know what I was preaching right now, just to be honest with you. We think we know everything, though, don't we? We think your miracle's got to be my miracle, but I always wanted to be I wanted God to use me to plant a church. Always did. I remember when I was 16, 17 years old, I read a book called The Purpose-Driven Church. It was way before The Purpose-Driven Life. Purpose-Driven Church by Rick Warren. And I read that, and I wrote in the back of that book that one day I would plant a church in Berkeley County that would reach, and I wrote this down. This is incredible to think that I wrote that back in that day. I think there were probably 3,000 people in our town at that time. I wrote that it would reach 10,000 people. 10,000 people. I wrote that down. But can I tell you that many years passed, nearly 20 years passed, almost a 25-mile journey, 25-year journey, rather. 20 years passed. And along the way, I thought, well, maybe that was just a dream that it's never going to really happen. Maybe God had different plans for me. He just had a different way. Just had a different how. I couldn't be caught up in the how. I needed to be caught up in the why. There are people in Berkeley County who need Jesus There's 140,000 people this weekend who woke up this morning and haven't had a thought in months about God. Months, much less church. And so we were able to see God do an incredible and amazing thing. So he's gotten to Jesus, and now he's been sent away. And no Jesus with him. It's a different way. And he too, he saw that he took Jesus at his word. He said, all right, I'm just going to have to take Jesus at his word. I mean, I got no other choice. I'm going to have to walk this journey. Just got to keep walking in faith. It's a different way than I thought it was going to be, different how than I thought it was going to be. And so he's just turning over, taking him at his word and turn the crisis over to Jesus. Saying, Jesus, you take care of it. I'm just going to trust you. And then in verse 50, it says, the man believed what Jesus said to him and departed. What a big statement. Remember we said last week, what did Mary say? Just do what he tells you to do. You know, believe in the original language is not so much an intellectual word as much as an action-oriented word. It is a to believe. It's something that we do. We believe. And I believe that what this verse was saying is that every step that man took along those 25 miles was a step of belief. Step of belief. He just kept taking another step of belief. He kept just saying, all right, there's another, I'm taking one more step closer home. There's another step of belief. I'm taking one more step closer. There's another step of belief. And so over and over again, he takes these steps of belief that he's walking towards God. See, obeying Jesus preceded the man's growing faith and the miracle that he experienced. He needed to obey. The first step was to just, okay, all right, I'm going to take another step. And I believe there's some of you here, you're on a 25-mile journey. God's given you a vision. He's given you a dream. He's told you that he's going to heal, give you the miracle in your life. He's going to bring healing into your life. And every step is just another step forward. You need to keep taking a step. Keep taking a step. And there's some of you who you've grown weary, and the scripture says, don't grow weary in doing good. Just keep taking good step after good step. Keep obeying. And it's mundane right now. And there aren't miracles showing up all around you. And on this 25-mile journey, he didn't know, is my son alive? Is my son not alive? But every single step was a step of belief. And with every single step, his faith was strengthened. And along the way, I believe it was those steps that healed his son. It was those steps that Jesus said, because of your belief, your son will be healed. Jesus tells us throughout Scripture, he says, it's belief. It's your action-oriented belief. It is those steps of faith. And for some of you, you just need to hear this. Don't grow weary. Keep walking. Keep stepping. Obey Jesus, and it will precede your growing faith and the miracle that's going to happen in your life. It was a long way back home, and he wrestled with it. He took steps. He had doubt, but he doubted his doubts. He trusted Jesus. The man was learning that the more often you obey Jesus, the stronger your faith grows. And so he sought after Jesus. He put his faith in Jesus, and his faith turned towards home, because of where home was where the miracle was going to be. But here's the big payoff, and this is what I said earlier. I said this man, there was something bigger that Jesus was working on. Why didn't Jesus go with him? Because this 25-mile journey was preparing for him for something. This 25-mile journey, Jesus had bigger plans for him. Look at verse 51. While he was still going down, his slaves met him, saying that the boy was alive. So somewhere along the 25-mile journey, they came and gave him encouragement. Sometimes you just need that. You need somebody to come along the 25-mile journey, just give you some encouragement. That's what I hope that I'm able to do every single Sunday, is just be here to give you a little bit of encouragement. You're on your 25-mile journey, but I'm just giving you a little bit more encouragement, just to kind of push you along. Say, take one more step. Hey, this week, take one more step. This week, take one more step, and that's what we're doing. And this guy comes along and says, your boy's alive. He asked him at what time he got better. Yesterday at 7 in the morning, the fever left him, they answered. The father realized this was the very hour at which Jesus had told him, your son will live. Your son will live. Remember the other times that Jesus showed up in your life. He remembers back. He's like, wait a minute, this is when Jesus showed up. This is what he said he was going to do. And remember the blessings and the favor that he's given you. I got to remember back sometimes. When did Jesus show up? Oh, yeah, that's exactly when that change started to happen. Sometimes we think we got our life straight. You didn't get your life straight. That was when God started to work in your life. That was when that friend came into your life and invited you to church. He's got to remember back. When did Jesus show up? See, God's miracle for today is also his encouragement for tomorrow. There are some of you who you've got miracles now that you can reach back into the past and go, I remembered when he did that. Some of you get discouraged, and discouragement is your greatest enemy, and your discouragement will bring you down, and you just got to reach back and be encouraged by what God did before. You got to remember and then pray, God, do it again. God, do it again. You got to say, God, you did it again. You did it back then. Do it again, God. And you have encouragement because of those previous miracles. But then, here's the big thing Jesus was pushing for. That miracle of yesterday is your story for others. Verse 53. Then he himself believed along with his whole household. See, Jesus had a plan for this man to develop a story over a 25-mile journey and develop a faith over a 25-mile journey, to develop hope and to see a miracle happen. He had a plan, and the plan was because he had a story that needed to be told to others. Why? Because God loves people. See, this wasn't just about this man. Jesus could have told the man, your son is already healed. Here's evidence of it. He could have literally shown him that his son was healed if he wanted to. He could have taken him right then and gone to be with his son physically, or he could have made them appear with his son. He's God. He could have done it any way he wanted, but he needed this man to be developed, to take next step after next step, so that when he got there, he would share his story with his whole family, and they too would believe. Your faith and your miracles will be the miracle for someone else. See, everything you go through is for a reason. Everything you go through is because God is going to use you to reach others. Everything you go to is going to point you towards helping others. What if the primary reason I'm here is so that I can help someone else? What if the primary reason you're here is so you can help someone else? What if the reason you're in this church is so that you can take step after step after step on the 25-mile journey so that you can help someone else? What if the reason you're going through what you're going through is so you can help someone else? What if the reason you're going through what you're going through is so the miracle can happen, and when you share the miracle, that your whole household will believe? What if those ID3s you prayed for every single weekend, 3 people you've identified in your life who are far from God, but they're close to you? What if your story is so that they can be healed? This man goes back and his whole household believes. He shared his faith with his family. What he understood was that there was something to believe. What he understood is that the miracle was bigger than himself. Would you close your eyes just for a moment? We don't do this very often here, but just close your eyes just so you can be focused, so you're not distracted by my sweet Air Jordans. Just close your eyes. What if you just, in your mind right now, I want you to think of that person. It's far from God, but they're close to you. You love them. You've seen sin take its toll on their life. You've seen doubt beat them up. They're far from God, but they're close to you. Just capture them in your mind right now. You can see their face. What if God brought you to the place you're at right now so that you would be the miracle in their life? What if the 25-mile journey you've been on in your life that's been hard, that's been full of doubt, that's been a wrestling with God, was so that you can see them come to know Jesus? What if it was the fact that you'll be able to point them to the love that God has for them? What if it was all for that? What if during our worship you were just to capture their mind, in your mind, their face, their name, and just pray for them? Just pray, God, give me opportunities. God, give me the chance to just share with them. Give me the chance to tell them my story. Because your story is the story of a miracle. As we sing and as we worship, God, would you help us to, God, be committed to the mundane. God, let us respond by going to the cross and repenting of, God, living for miracles and living for the exciting when, God, you've asked us to take the 25-mile journey one step at a time. God, help us to realize that it is through your body and broken and your blood that was spilled that we are able to, God, have a story. And so as we respond through communion and we respond through the lighting of candles and giving of our tithes and our offerings as an act of worship, repenting at the cross and singing with all of our hearts. And God, I pray that you would remind us of your love on a cross. In Jesus' name we pray as we sing and we worship.